Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to enchant using the Create mod. We're not only going to be able to fully automate enchanting, but we're also going to be able to supercharge enchantments to get overpowered tools and armor. Now by default, the Create mod doesn't actually let you enchant, so we're using the Enchantment Industry add-on in order to do so. Now I have covered the add-on in the past, but just about everything has changed, so it's past time that we take a nice in-depth overview of Create Enchantment Industry. Now, first things first, we're going to talk about actually managing experience in the mod. So in the mod, experience is going to work as a liquid, so you can store it in tanks, which also means that you can pump it out of tanks. So that's one way to extract experience from your system, because it literally is a liquid. Now, obviously that goes pretty quick, so do be careful with your experience showers. But the other way to interact with experience is with the experience hatch. And what this does is this lets you right click to put experience into a tank and then shift right click to take experience out. But you can also modify that with the slider here. So if you want to do more at a time, we can set this all the way to 1,000. So we can take out or put in 1,000 experience points at a time. Now keep in mind that this is points and not levels. So if you want specific level amounts, you do need to mess around a little bit to figure that out. Now that being said, 0 to 30 is about 1,500 experience points. So if I set this to 500 and I take out 1, 2, 3, it'll be 1,500, puts us right at 30. And once you're at level 30, it's gonna be about 100 experience points per level. So you can see every one of these I put in, it goes down, and every one I take out, it goes up. So what I'd recommend if you're enchanting at level 30 is to get yourself to 30, set this to 100, and then let's just say I enchanted something for 3 levels. I can just shift right click this to get that level 30 back. So that way we're not wasting experience because it scales. So that means level 1 to 2 is very little points, but then level 30 to 31 is more points. Now, if we don't want to store it in a fluid form and we want to like take it around with us and have access to the levels, we can take out of the fluid tank. So first option is filling with the spout into glass bottles. Second option is if you craft this fluid hatch, which the mod adds, you can right click it with a bucket to get buckets of enchanting, which are pretty good. Like they hold quite a lot of experience. I want to imagine that it's 1,000 points. So assuming 1 millibucket is a point, it does hold 1,000. So I believe that a bucket of enchanting is going to hold exactly 1,000 points. And the final way to collect experience is the way that we're going to use to automate it. So if we have a farm that's collecting mob drops and we want to collect that experience, we can use the experience lantern. And the way this works is if you have a pump, it'll pump experience from the lantern into our storage system. Let's just go ahead and empty this out. And there's 2 ways to fill this up. One is if a player gets close enough, you can see it'll actually start taking experience from my bar and putting it into the lantern. So, you could set this up to an automatic pump and you can constantly pump experience from your player out into a tank. The other really cool thing it does is if there's experience on the ground, it'll also suck it up. So you can see it's collecting that experience, and if I pump this, it'll slowly suck up all that experience and put it into our tank. So if you automated this, you can really easily collect experience points that are sitting on the ground. So you can see that it went ahead and sucked it all up. And one really cool thing about these lanterns is they also do work on contraptions. So you can set it up on a contraption, it'll collect those points, suck them up into the system, and then you can use a portable storage interface to then pump it out. And one more really cool thing about these lanterns is they give off a different amount of light based on how much experience is in them. So you can see empty one is unlit, one with about a quarter full is a little bit bright, half full a little bit more, and then the last one is very bright. So you can kind of see how full your bulb is just by the brightness it gives off. Now there is one more way to collect experience in the mod, and that's using the mechanical grindstone. Now to get this, you just craft it up and then you right click on an item drain and that turns it into a grindstone drain. And I'm just going to put a mechanical grindstone on top of that, and now you have a way to collect experience. Now you will notice one side of the drain has a shaft and the other side has a pipe. You want to make sure that your pipe is aligned with a pipe and your shaft side is aligned with a shaft. Now you can see I have this little system set up kind of showing the different stuff it can do. The first items it can do are all of our experience items. So that's both regular and super. Now the only experience item you're actually really going to be collecting are these nuggets, which are crafted by crushing down ores and raw ores, and you get a little bit of a chance to get some nuggets out of it. The other 3 items that basically hold experience are just crafted up using different means. The other really cool thing is these can actually polish quartz. So you can see our rose quartz can go in here, get polished up, and we can automatically get polished rose quartz. Now, along with collecting experience from those experience pieces, we can also collect it from enchanted tools. So you can see we have this enchanted pickaxe. It'll strip the enchantment off and collect the experience off of it. So that's one way to kind of recycle the experience points that you put onto your tools. It's a really useful system. So now it's time to really get into the meat of the mod, and that's with blaze enchanting. So blaze enchanting, first you need to craft up this blaze enchanter, which is actually crafted in the smithing table. So you need a blaze smithing temple upgrade, which you can craft once you find your first smithing table upgrade. So you do need to find that, then you can craft up your templates. And then you also just need an enchanting table and a blaze burner. So a little bit difficult to get, but not too bad, all things considered. Because once you actually have this guy crafted up, he can now enchant for you. So to get it to work, you do need to pump experience in through the bottom of the enchanter. And then you can go ahead and grab whatever tools and armor you want. This goes for all of the default things, as well as all of the create items. Plus, you can do books in this system. So we'll start with just a stone sword. There is a enchanting level you can set. So you can set 0 to 30. And then all you do is you right click the top of your guy. He'll go into enchanting mode and enchant up your item. There it is, our level 30 enchanted stone sword. We got sharpness 4, sweeping edge 3. Not too bad for our first enchant. Now this guy does just have the default enchanting kind of system. However, he's not going to need lapis to work, and you can also very easily set your level, drop in your item. You can even get to the point of automating this, which we'll go over in just a little bit. But just a nice little way to like finely tune what levels you're enchanting at, and just a new way to enchant your gear. Now, arguably the more kind of useful version of this is going to be enchanting templates. So essentially what an enchanting template allows you to do is enchant the template as if it was a book or something, but based on a specific tool or armor. So if you go ahead and we come in here, and I'm like, I'm enchanting a sword, so I want sword enchantments. I can go ahead and right click on our box here, which will set this guy to enchant sword stuff. And now when I put my enchanting template on, you'll see we'll go into enchanting mode, enchant up the template, and we have our template enchanted with Fire Aspect 1 from that level 15 sword enchant. Now if we're able to switch this over to a chest piece, we'll now get a level 15 chest piece enchantment. So this is really similar to like using books as enchantments, except you actually get to control what enchantments you're getting. You're not going to get a bunch of fishing rod enchantments when you're just trying to get protection 3 for your chest piece. And you can see we got protection 2 from that chest piece enchant. Now crafting these up is pretty simple. If we collect those nuggets of experience we were talking about earlier by crushing down our ores, we get the nuggets, which we can then craft 9 of them into a block. And then that block can just be pressed in a press, and then we'll get our enchantment templates out of that. So relatively easy to automate, not fully because you do need those nuggets of experience, but you can get pretty dang close to fully automating them. Now that being said, if you do have fully automated experience, like from a mob farm, you can actually pump your liquid experience into a basin, press that, which will then compress it down into a block of experience, which you can then press down into your enchanting template. So it is actually reasonable to pretty much fully automate your enchanting templates. So now that we have our enchanting templates, it's time to talk about the Blaze Forager, which allows us to actually use those templates and also just improve our enchanting as a whole. So this guy is also crafted up using the Blaze Upgrade Smithing template in a table, but it's going to be using an anvil instead of that enchanting table, so a little bit cheaper depending on what you have more of, diamonds or iron. But still, once you get that first template, you can then duplicate them and you can make as many of these as you need. Now the first thing this guy can do is it can actually combine enchantments. So let's just say I have 2 Bane of Arthropods 1 swords. I can go ahead and combine them together, and now the bonus of this is it's not going to impact enchantment cost. Typically, when you combine swords like this in a anvil, it ups the cost to repair them, but here it actually won't. So you can see we now have our Bane of Arthropods 2 sword, and you can also combine this with other enchantments. So if I combine that with this knockback looting sword, it'll combine, it'll have all three of those enchantments all on the sword without impacting that repair cost. And so there you go, we now have our Bane of Arthropods 2, knockback 1, looting 1 sword. Now this does work with our enchanting templates as well. So if we have two of these sharpness 2, we can combine them into a sharpness 3, and then we can combine it with the smite 3 to make a better enchanting template. So there we go, we have our sharpness 3, and then we can combine that with our smite 3 to get our sharpness 3, smite 3 template. And now this actually isn't going to work because these can't usually be added to the same tool. There is actually a way to bypass in this mod we're going to talk about in a minute, but for now we'll have to combine two different enchantments. So here we have our sharpness 3, and then I got a knockback 1, so we can go ahead and combine these. It'll give us a sharpness 3, knockback 1 template. So there we go, we now have our sharpness 3, knockback 1. Now let's just say you crafted one of these, or you just enchanted one that you want to take apart. So let's say we have the sharpness 4, knockback 2, and we want those enchantments on separate tools. What we can actually do is take an enchanting template. So first drop in your enchanted one, and then an empty one. And what it'll do is it'll strip off individual enchantments. So once it's done cooking over here, I can grab these, and we now have our knockback 2 and sharpness 4 as separate templates instead of knocked together at the same one. Plus, this guy can also combine books just like it can tools or templates, so we can combine these two protection 3 into a protection 4 book if we were using those. So now that we have the ability to refine our templates, we can now apply them, and those are also done in the Blaze Forger. So all we got to do is add our tool, add our template, then he will start cooking them up, and once they're finished, we will now have an enchanted tool. So there we go, we got our sharpness 4 sword. Now that we have an enchanted sword, we can't actually strip off the enchantment, so I put that in there first, and then a template. We can strip that enchantment back off a sword. So if you got an enchanted sword off of like a zombie or something, you can actually strip that enchantment off to have. So we'll now get our sharpness 4 enchantment and then our sword back. So while these new enchantment capabilities are really nice and gives you a little bit more control over how you enchant, you can't actually do anything new. You can't upgrade your tools past what you could do in vanilla Minecraft. But that's all going to change when we start talking about super enchanting. So super enchanting is essentially a way to supercharge enchantments. It's going to allow us to enchant above level 60, which means you're going to get better enchantments on your tools. It's also going to allow us to do something kind of crazy, which is combine tools together. So if jumping ahead a little bit here, what we can actually do is we can combine tools to get extra over-leveled tools. So you can see here we have a Fortune 4, which typically the max is 3, Efficiency 6 pickaxe, which is amazing. We can also do crazy things like double up all of our protections. So you can see on our diamond chest plate, typically you can't combine protection with blast protection, but here we can combine all of them and even super upgrade them. So we can make some really insane tools and armor using super enchanting. Now, before we get into all of that, we need to figure out how to super enchant to start. So basically, what we need to do is craft up these cakes of enchanting. Now, in order to make these, we're going to come over here, take eggs, sugar, and lapis, and we're just going to squish those down in a basin, and that's going to make our cake base. Since we have our cake base, all we're going to do is drop it underneath a spout with experience, fill it up, and we have our cakes of enchanting. Now, these can be used on their own, or we can, of course, saw them if you want cake slices. They do the same amount, so 4 cake slices gets you 1 cake, but if you want to like have more granular approach, you can slice them up if you'd like. Now, what's really cool about this is we can just right-click our base enchanter. He basically eats that cake, turns blue, and then we have that second experience bar. And that second experience bar is basically going to be how much cake he has and how much super enchanting he can do. So getting into actually using it, it's basically going to work the same way as our regular Blaze Enchanter does. We can take our templates or our tools, noting these do have to be super enchanting templates, drop it in our enchanter, and what we're going to notice is we can go up to level 30. We can also go all the way up to level 60. So you can see if we enchant this tool with a level 60 enchant, we're going to get much better enchantments than we'd expect with our regular enchanter over there. Oh, now one thing you're going to notice is whenever you enchant with the enchanter, you do get a lightning strike. So I'd highly recommend placing a lightning rod, or alternatively, if you have a block covering your enchanter, it just won't put off any lightning. And we can now take a look at our pickaxe, and we got a Fortune 3 Efficiency 5 mending pickaxe. You can get Efficiency 5 by default, but you have to like combine tools. So the fact that we can get this right off of our enchanter is really quite cool. Now, we do have our enchanting templates, which are going to work the same. You know, we can go ahead and drop a pickaxe in here, drop the super enchanting template on, and you can see he's not going to enchant because it doesn't have enough cake. So I can grab some of these cakes, feed him up, and he'll enchant that up. Now, in order to get these templates, we need a new block. And the way we get that block is by hitting these blocks of experience with lightning. So you can see how these kind of work together. And we'll get these blocks of super experience. And you craft these down the same way you're going to craft your regular experience. You just throw it on a press and you squish it up. And then that's going to give you your super enchanting template. We can see this template we made over here has Fortune 3 Efficiency 5. We managed to get the same thing without the mending, but you can kind of see how we're getting just a little bit better enchants than we do by default. So the second part of our super enchanting is our super forging, and this is where we take our tools to the next level. Now there's essentially two ways this can be used. The first is combining enchantments. So if I have Fortune 4 and a Fortune 4 and Efficiency 5, I want to combine those together. I can actually do that on our enchanter. I'm going to get our Fortune 5 Efficiency 6 pickaxe out of it. So you can see that'll enchant itself up, and there we go, our Efficiency 4, Fortune 5 pickaxe completed. Now the second thing we can do is we can combine enchantments that typically can't be combined. So Protection 4, Fire Protection, those can't be combined in an anvil, but using our forger here, we can actually combine those books and get them both on the same enchantment, which is really useful. So you can see there it is enchanted up, our Protection 4, Fire Protection 3 book. And of course, we can double up on this process. So we can take our now combined books and we can then double up on those books to get them to the next level. Now, sadly, everything only goes up by 1. You can't have a Fortune 12 book or anything. It really only just goes up by 1, but still Protection 5, Fire Protection 4 is a pretty dang good enchantment. So really taking this all the way, you can have Protection 5, Blast Protection 5, Fire Protection 4, Projectile Protection 4, all on a single piece of armor. Now, one thing to note is you do have to use a Super Blaze Forger in order to put super enchantments on, but you cannot use it to put regular enchantments on. You have to go back to our regular forger if I want to put on a regular enchantment. So this is only for regular, this guy is only for super. Now, one thing I do want to note here is these books can actually be duplicated using the printer that the mod adds. So stay tuned till later in the video where we're going to talk about that, but you can actually duplicate your enchanted books, which is really nice. So you can duplicate a bunch of them, enchant your stuff up really easily. Now, of course, this is the Create mod, so all of this can be automated. You see, I've got some mechanical arms feeding these guys with the cakes, and then I have this one enchanting up templates for us. So the arm is going to take our template from here, drop it onto our enchanter. Then once it's done, this arm is going to grab it from the enchanter, place it over here. You can see we can just automatically start collecting our enchantment templates. And of course, these can be automatically applied with the forger. If I drop a tool right here, an enchantment right here, this arm is going to grab the tool, grab the enchantment, and then our forger is going to then enchant it up fully automatically. All I have to do is sit here and watch. So this is really useful if you just want to knock out a bunch of templates to combine up, or if you have a server and you want to duplicate a bunch of tools for a bunch of your friends. This is a really nice and efficient way to do that. Now, Enchantment Industry also adds the printer. Now, the printer is really cool because it makes some stuff that isn't before automatable. You can now automate it. It also adds a few unique uses, which is really cool, and I'm excited to take a look at those. Now, the first thing you can do is you can take black dye, which I'll show you how to get dye in a moment, pump it into a printer, have a written book here, and you can duplicate what's on that written book. So it'll squish down, duplicate that up, and we now have our written book. The second thing you can do, which is definitely more useful, is duplicate enchantments. So if you set an enchantment here on the filter, drop in a book, you do need to pump in experience, not ink, but it will then enchant up your book with whatever enchantment you have. So you can see here, I'm duplicating that super overpowered Protection 4, Blast Protection 4 book, which we can then combine up and enchant all of our armor with. arguably just as useful, depending on the project you're working on. You can also duplicate the contents of any filter. You can also do schedules, you can also do clipboards, but really the main useful thing here is going to be your filters. So I can drop my filters on here, it'll then squish down, and we can duplicate the contents of that filter, which is really useful. So now we're going to talk about actually getting that black dye ink and what else you can do with it. So to actually get dye, you're just going to drop water in a basin, drop in the dye color of your choice, and that's going to turn it into your black dye fluid or like your ink. So you can then use that to do our printing processes over here, but there's actually two new uses for it. First, we can take any color and we can put it on a name tag, and it'll then duplicate whatever's on there in a specific color. So you can see we can now have a name tag with a custom color, which is really a neat little feature. And the last thing it can do is it can print the location of something onto a package. So we have a filter up here. If I drop this one that's right now going to diamond, it can then print on here and then change it where now it's going to go to storage. So that's honestly quite a useful feature to have. I could definitely think of quite a few uses for that, and I'm glad that the mod added it in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth look at Create Enchantment Industry. I know there is an old version out there. This is the new updated version, and I'm really excited that they updated it because I think all the features work a lot nicer together, and it's just going to be a really fun mod to play around with in survival. Now, for those of you that know about my big mod pack project I'm working on, this mod is definitely going to make the cut. I think the new features it adds and the new capabilities is going to be something that's really fun to play around with, and it's definitely going to be added to my mod pack. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.